Vitam tam sajivam. Sadvaitam savadhutam parijana sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishnapadan Sargam Lalita Shri Vishakhanutam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshnaye Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Picharine Nirvishesha Shunyadi Vashyatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Vedanta Shivasadi Gaurav Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare सर्वशास्त्रार्थ सर्ववेदिक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाख्य सर्वलोकैर्वृद सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद्भागवत प्रभो कलिध्वांतोदितादित्य श्री कृष्ण परिवचित परमानंद पाठाय प्रेमवर्षक्षराय ते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्य श्री कृष्णाय नमस्तु मे मदेक बंधो मत्संगिन मद्गुरो मन्महाधन मन्निस्तारक मद्भाग्यमदानंदनमस्तुते साधु साधुतादाय नतिनीचोक्षताकर आनमुंच कदाचिन्मां प्रेम्णा हृत्कण्ठयोस्फुर ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नेक्स्ट 8 युधिष्ठिरो वाच अपि स्मरथनो युष्मत् पक्षच्छाया समेधितान् विपद्गणा विषाज्ञादेर्मोचिता यत् समात्रकाः. Maharaj Yudhishthir said, my uncle, do you remember how you always protected us along with our mother from all sorts of calamities? Your partiality, like the wings of a bird, saved us from poisoning and arson. Arson means the attempt to kill someone by burning them up. Like the wings of a bird. Swami, Sridhar Swami explains, पक्षिणः हि अपत्यानि यथा अतिस्नेहेन छायया वर्धयन्ति तद्वत्. Just as birds, they with extreme affection, they grow their children, they make their children grow by protecting them with the shade of their wings. Like that, you had protected us. Due to Pandu's death at an early age, his minor children and widow were the object of special care by all the elderly members of the family, especially Bhishmadev and Mahatma Vidura. Vidura was more or less partial to the Pandavas due to their political position. Although Dhritarashtra was equally careful for the minor children of Maharaj Pandu, he was one of the intriguing parties who wanted to wash away the descendants of Pandu and replace them by raising his own sons to become the rulers of the kingdom. Mahatma Vidura could follow this intrigue of Dhritarashtra and company. And therefore, even though he was a faithful servitor of his eldest brother, Dhritarashtra, he did not like his political ambition for the sake of his own sons. So Vidura did not like Dhritarashtra's political ambition for the sake of Dhritarashtra's sons. He was therefore very careful about the protection of the Pandavas and their widowed mother. Thus he was, so to speak, partial to the Pandavas, preferring them to the sons of Dhritarashtra, although he was equally affectionate to both parties in his ordinary eyes. This idea that has to be understood. Obviously, in Vedic Dharma, certain persons are more favored than others. But who are more favored actually? The ones who are more selfless are favored more. Because by favoring them, everybody will be benefited. This is a very important concept, that everybody has to be benefited. Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu is a very important idea. Everybody should be happy. And in fact, that is also the reason why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur stresses the preaching, the study, practice, and propagation of pure devotion service to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because it is going to benefit everyone. If everyone becomes a pure devotee of Lord Krishna and his beloved associates, then everybody will be benefited. Kleshagni, Shubhada, Mokshila, Dhutakrit, Sudurlava, Sandrananda, Visheshatma, Shri Krishna, Krishni, Chasa. Everything will happen. All good will happen. He was equally affectionate to both the camps of nephews in the sense that he always chastised Duryodhana for his intriguing policy against his cousins. He always criticized his elder brother for his policy of encouragement to his sons. And at the same time, he was always alert in giving special protection to the Pandavas. All these different activities of Vidura within the palace politics made him well known as partial to the Pandavas. Maharaj Yudhishthir has referred to the past history of Vidura before his going away from home for a prolonged pilgrimage journey. Maharaj Yudhishthir reminded him that he was both kind and partial to his grown-up nephews even after the battle of Kurukshetra, a great family disaster. Before the battle of Kurukshetra, Dhritarashtra's policy was peaceful annihilation of his nephews. Peaceful annihilation of his nephews. And therefore, he ordered Purochana to build a house of lac at Varanavata. And when the building was finished, Dhritarashtra desired that his brother's family live there for some time. When the Pandavas were going there in the presence of all the members of the royal family, Vidura tactfully gave instructions to the Pandavas about the future plan of Dhritarashtra. This is specifically described in the Mahabharata, Adi Parva 133. He indirectly hinted a weapon not made of steel or any other material element can be more sharp enough to kill an enemy, and he who knows this is never killed. That is to say, he hinted that the party of the Pandavas was being sent to Varanavata to be killed. And thus he warned Yudhishthira to be very careful in that new residential palace. He also gave indications of fire and said that fire cannot extinguish the soul, but can annihilate the material body. But one who protects the soul can live. So it looks like Vidura had his own intelligence network with which he understood what was going on. Kunti could not follow such indirect conversations between Maharaj Yudhishthira and Vidura, and thus when she inquired from her son about the purport of the conversation, Yudhishthira replied that from the talks of Vidura, it was understood that there was a hint of fire in the house where they were proceeding. Later on, Vidura came in disguise to the Pandavas and informed them that the housekeeper was going to set fire to the house on the 14th night of the waning moon. It was an intrigue of Dhritarashtra that the Pandavas might die altogether with their mother. And by Vidura's warning, the Pandavas escaped through a tunnel underneath the earth, so that their escape was also unknown to Dhritarashtra. So much so that after setting the fire, the Kauravas were so certain of the death of the Pandavas that Dhritarashtra performed the last rites of death with great cheerfulness. Somehow, by the will of Providence, there was an aboriginal woman along with 5 of her sons who had drunk too much, and they happened to be there. So their bodies got burnt. Liquor drinking is dangerous for health. Liquor drinking is dangerous for, I don't know what all to say, not just for health, for living itself. And during the mourning period, that is why Dhritarashtra performed the last rites to those dead bodies. And during the mourning period, all the members of the palace became overwhelmed with lamentation. All the other members of the palace. But Vidura did not become so because of its knowledge that the Pandavas were alive somewhere. There are many such instances of calamities, and in each of them, Vidura gave protection to the Pandavas on one hand, and on the other, he tried to restrain his brother Dhritarashtra from such intriguing policies. Therefore, he was always partial to the Pandavas, just as a bird protects its eggs by its wing. Kayavritya vartitam vascharadbhi shishtimandalam tirthani kshetramukhyani sevitaniha bhutale. While traveling on the surface of the earth, how did you maintain your livelihood? At which holy places and pilgrimage sites did you render service? Kaya vritya vartitam desha vritti krita. How did you maintain your body? Jivikaya. What source of livelihood did you have? Vidura went out from the palace to detach himself from household affairs, especially political intrigues. As referred to herein before, he was practically insulted by Duryodhana's calling him a son of a Shudrani, although it was not out of place. Talked loosely in the case of one's grandmother. Vidura's mother, although a Shudrani, was the grandmother of Duryodhana. And funny talks are sometimes allowed between grandmother and grandchildren. But because the remark was an actual fact, it was unpalatable talk to Vidura, and it was accepted as a direct insult. He therefore decided to quit his paternal house and prepare for the renounced order of life. This preparatory stage is called Vanaprastha Ashrama, or retired life for traveling and visiting the holy places on the surface of the earth. In the holy places of India, like Vrindavan, Haridwar, Jagannath Puri, and Prayag, there are many great devotees, and there are still free kitchen houses for persons who desire to advance spiritually. So, what are these kitchen houses?
Bandara. They give every day. There are so many people, different. They give free food to whoever comes.
We should open one in Mayapur.
There are many, not just one, many. So many people are willing to.
So when you all become very exalted preachers and you have hundreds of people listening to you, at that time you organize all these things. Maharaj Yudhishthir was inquisitive to learn whether Vidura maintained himself by the mercy of the free kitchen houses, Chhatras. Chhatra. They are still there? What
South
did they
India,
do?
it is in South India it is called Chhatras. When we went to Ahobilam, there are Chhatras. But in North India, generally they say it Bandara.
And what exactly they give?
Rice, dal, sabji, chapati.
They give
full
foodstuffs
system. Yeah.
and accommodation they give.
Yeah, accommodation also for free. Whatever donation you give, just that's okay.
Text 10. Bhavadvidha bhagavatas tirthabhuta swayam vibho tirthi kurvanti tirthani swantasthena gada bhrita. This is Yudhishthira. You can never forget Krishna. Those who are pure devotees of Lord Vishnu, they will remember that even when they glorify the Vaishnava, it will always be in relationship with Vishnu. They'll never disconnect the Vaishnava from Vishnu. You see here very clearly. Even though he's glorifying Vidura, immediately he remembers Krishna. My Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified, because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart. You turn all places into places of pilgrimage. Bhavatam cha tirthartanam na swartham. Your pilgrimage is not for your benefit. Into tirthanugrahartham ityaha. Rather, it is to bless these holy places. With this in mind, he speaks the current verse. Bhavadvidha iti. Malina jana samparkena malinani tirthani santaha punah swayam tirthi kurvanti. These holy places, they become contaminated because of the association of contaminated people. So they become again holy places. Swantam manaha tatsthena swasya antastitena itiva. It is because he carries the personality of Godhead in his heart. तीर्थेषु भक्तिमतां भवतां तीर्थाटनं च तीर्थानामेव मंगलाय संपद्यते इत्याह भवद्विधा. In these holy places, There are, when devotees like you visit, it should be understood that it is for the auspiciousness of these holy places. That is what it comes out to be. Bhavatam cha tirthatanam tirthanam eva bhagyena. This is simply the good fortune of these holy places that you are visiting them. Tirthi kurvanti mahatirthi kurvanti pavanam pavananam iti vat. What is this? Oh, that's a nice. This is referring to Padhyavali 19. What is Padhyavali 19? Let's trace it out. Kalyananam nidhanam kalimalamathanam pavanam pavananam patheyam yan mumukshos sapadi parapada praptaye prochyamanam Vishramasthanam ekam kabivara vachasam jivanam sajjananam bijam dharma dhrumasya prabhavatu bhavatam bhutaye Krishna nama. May Krishna's holy name, which is a reservoir of all transcendental happiness, the destruction of Kali Yuga's sins, the most purifying of all purifying things, the saintly person's food as he quickly traverses the path to the spiritual world, the pleasure garden where the voices of the greatest saints, philosophers, and poets play, the life of the righteous, and the seed of the tree of religion bring transcendental auspiciousness to you all. So his idea is, look at this expression, Pavanam Pavananam. Pavanam Pavananam. It is a purifier of purifiers. So like that, here, in the current verse of Bhagavatam, it is said that he makes the holy places into a holy place, which means he makes these holy places into great holy places. Tirthi kurvanti, ujjvalani, pavitya karana shaktimanti kurvanti iti arthaha. Makes them into holy places means it makes them into shining places filled with the potency to purify others. The personality of Godhead is omnipresent by his diverse potencies everywhere, just as the power of electricity is distributed everywhere within space. Similarly, the Lord's omnipresence is perceived and manifested by his unalloyed devotees like Vidura, just as electricity is manifested in an electric bulb. A pure devotee like Vidura always feels the presence of the Lord everywhere. He sees everything in the potency of the Lord and the Lord in everything. The holy places all over the earth are meant for purifying the polluted consciousness of the human being by an atmosphere surcharged with the presence of the Lord's unalloyed devotees. If anyone visits a holy place, he must search out the pure devotees residing in such holy places, take lessons from them, try to apply such instructions in practical life, and thus gradually prepare oneself for the ultimate salvation, going back to Godhead. So this is what is meant by association. Association means, first of all, associating with those who are pure. Not those who we think are pure. Those who are verifiably pure. Sufficiently pure. Because there are many sincere, impure practitioners of Krishna consciousness who decide to become pure. Not people like that. That is, we ourselves are like that. We cannot help each other to that extent. So take shelter of the pure devotees residing in such holy places. Take lessons from them. Try to apply such instructions in practical life. That is what is meant by association, according to Prabhupada. To go to some holy place of pilgrimage does not mean only to take a bath in the Ganges or Yamuna or to visit the temples situated in those places. One should also find representatives of Vidura who have no desire in life save and except to serve the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead is always with such pure devotees because of their unalloyed service, which is without any tinge of fruitive action or utopian speculation. They are in the actual service of the Lord, specifically by the process of hearing and chanting. The pure devotees hear from the authorities and chant, sing, and write of the glories of the Lord. Mahamuni Vyasadeva heard them from Narada, and then he chanted them in writing. Sukadeva Goswami studied them from his father, and he described them to Parikshit. That is the way of Srimad Bhagavatam. So by their actions, the pure devotees of the Lord can render any place into a place of pilgrimage, and the holy places are worth the name only on their account. Such pure devotees are able to rectify the polluted atmosphere of any place. What to speak of a holy place rendered unholy by the questionable acts of interested persons who try to adopt a professional life at the cost of the reputation of a holy place. When people come to Dham, how will they know who is a pure devotee? Those who deserve to know will be enlightened by the Supreme Lord situated within the heart. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. 11. Apina suhridastata bandhava krishna devata drishta shrutava yadava sapuryam sukhamasate. My uncle, you must have visited Dwaraka. In that holy place are our friends and well-wishers, the descendants of Yadu, who are always wrapped in the service of. In that holy place are our friends and well-wishers, the descendants of Yadu, who are always wrapped in the service of the Lord Shri Krishna. You might have seen them or heard about them. Are they all living happily in their abode? The particular word, Krishna Devataha. Again, he's talking about Krishna. Krishna Devataha. The Yadavas are those who have accepted Krishna as their Devata, which means they're always wrapped in the service of Lord Shri Krishna. The particular word Krishna Devataha, that is, those who are always wrapped in the service of Lord Krishna, is significant. The Yadavas and the Pandavas, who were always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna and his different transcendental activities, were all pure devotees of the Lord, like Vidura. Vidura left home in order to devote himself completely to the service of the Lord. But the Pandavas and the Yadavas were always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna. Thus, there is no difference in their pure devotion qualities. Either remaining at home or leaving home, the real qualification of a pure devotee is to become wrapped in the thought of Krishna favorably. That is, knowing well that Lord Krishna is the absolute personality of Godhead. Kamsa, Jarasandha, Shishupala, and other demons like them were also always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna. But they were absorbed in a different way, namely unfavorably, by thinking him to be a powerful man only. Therefore, demons like Kamsa and Shishupala are not on the same level as pure devotees like Vidura, the Pandavas, and the Yadavas. Maharaj Yudhishthira was also always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna and his associates at Dwaraka. Otherwise, he would not have asked first of all about them from Vidura. Maharaj Yudhishthira was therefore on the same level of devotion as Vidura, although engaged in the state affairs of the kingdom of the world. 12. Ityukto dharmarajena sarvam tat samavarnayat yathanubhutam kramasho vina yadukulakshayam. Thus, being questioned by Maharaj Yudhishthira, Mahatma Vidura gradually described everything he had personally experienced, except news of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty. Now, Madhvacharya, you can see he's given a long explanation from Padma Purana. He's giving the chronology of events, which I could not clearly follow. So I will not deal with this now. I have started the process of going through Madhvacharya's Bhagavatam explanation, but it'll take a while. It will take a while. Apikim sukham asate bhavadbhihi papidrishta shuta va. Wait. Just do one thing. Look at Vijayadhwaja. Yeah, I need to get some books from Bangalore. Put into the big screen. What is this current verse? Yeah. No. So Yudhishthir lamenting. All the symptoms of Kali Yuga. I think this is the chapter we are in. Yes. Vinayakshayam. Correct. Uh, Tirthayatrayam, Yamunayam, Bhagavadadhyaya, Badarim Gachantam, Uddhavam Drishtva, Tasmat, Viprashapad Hetoho, Shadvimshad Varshad Upari Nasham Ishyad Yadukulam, Shutva, Tat Na Avarnayat iti bhavaha. While he was in pilgrimage on the banks of the Ganges, on the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Uddhava was going towards Badri. So Vidura met Uddhava. He heard about him, about the curse of the Vipras. He heard that by the curse of the Vipras, after Shadvimshat Varshas, that means after 26 years, the Yadukula is going to be destroyed. Therefore, he did not speak that. So that's what it's. Here also he is referring to Mahabharata. He's worked out a complete chronology based on the Puranas and Mahabharata. What happened first, what happened next. Shadvimshad Varsha Gavane Punaragatim Atmanaha. Okay, there's a question here. It is said Krishna consciousness is joyful. What does it mean? We will become joyful or we have to perform it joyfully? Then how this word rapt is applicable to it? Kleshagni, Shubhata. So when we execute pure devotional service in the stage of sadhana bhakti, then our avidya, our vasanas, and our papa, sinful reactions should disappear, should reduce. And that is known as Kleshagni. And then we will become happy. Brahmabhuta prasannatma nashodhati akankshati. We are supposed to come to that point. When we execute Uttama Bhakti, then that will come. So to whatever extent we are executing Uttama Bhakti, to that extent we will experience it. To whatever extent we don't experience it, it is understood we are not executing Uttama Bhakti. Uttama Bhakti is mainly executed by chanting. Okay. 13. Nanvapriyam durvishaham nrinam swayam upastitam navedayat sakarno dukhitan drashmakshamaha. Compassionate Mahatma Vidura could not stand to see the Pandavas distressed at any time. Therefore, he did not disclose this unpalatable and unbearable incident because calamities come of their own accord. This is the reason why he did not talk about the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. This is the rule of the Arthashastra. According to Niti Shastra, civic laws, one should not speak an unpalatable truth to cause distress to others. Distress comes upon us in its own way by the laws of nature, so one should not aggravate it by propaganda. For a compassionate soul like Vidura, especially in his dealings with the beloved Pandavas, it was almost impossible to disclose an unpalatable piece of news like the annihilation of the other dynasties. Therefore, he purposely refrained from it. 14. Kanchit kalam mathavatsi satkrito devavat sukham bhratur jyeshtasya veyaskrit sarvesham sukham avahan. Thus, Mahatma Vidura, being treated just like a godly person by his kinsmen, remained there for a certain period, just to rectify the mentality of his eldest brother, and thereby he also brought happiness to all the others. Shreyas-krit, Tattva-upadishan, Shreyas-krit. He stayed just to do good to his brothers, which means he wanted to instruct him about the reality of life. He wanted to give him beneficial instructions. Saintly persons like Vidura must be treated as well as a denizen from heaven. In those days, denizens of heavenly planets used to visit homes like that of Maharaj Yudhishthir, and sometimes persons like Arjuna and others used to visit higher planets. Narada is a spaceman who can travel unrestrictedly, not only within the material universes, but also in the spiritual universes. Even Narada used to visit the palace of Maharaj Yudhishthir, and what to speak of other celestial demigods. It is only the spiritual culture of the people concerned that makes interplanetary travel possible, even in the present body. Maharaj Yudhishthir therefore received Vidura in the manner of reception offered to the demigods. Mahatma Vidura had already adopted the renounced order of life unofficially. Therefore, he did not return to his paternal palace to enjoy some material comforts. He had adopted the renounced order of life, means he accepted all the prescriptions, prohibitions, and allowances of the renounced order of life. Not that he put on the dress of a sannyasi. That is superficial. He accepted out of his own mercy what was offered to him by Maharaj Yudhishthir, but the purpose of living in the palace was to deliver his elder brother Dhritarashtra, who was too much materially attached. Dhritarashtra lost all his state and descendants in the fight with Maharaj Yudhishthir, and still, due to his sense of helplessness, he did not feel ashamed to accept the charity and hospitality of Maharaj Yudhishthir. On the part of Maharaj Yudhishthir, it was quite in order to maintain his uncle in a befitting manner. But acceptance of such magnanimous hospitality by Dhritarashtra was not at all desirable. He accepted it because he thought that there was no alternative. Vidura particularly came to enlighten Dhritarashtra and to give him a lift to the higher status of spiritual cognition. It is the duty of enlightened souls to deliver the fallen ones, and Vidura came for that reason. But talks of spiritual enlightenment are so refreshing that while instructing Dhritarashtra, Vidura attracted the attention of all the members of the family, and all of them took pleasure in hearing him patiently. This is the way of spiritual realization. The message should be heard attentively, and if spoken by a realized soul, it will act on the dormant heart of the conditioned soul. And by continuously hearing, one can attain the perfect stage of self-realization. 15. Abhibrad Aryamadandam Yathavad Aghakarishu Yavad Dadhara Shudratvam Shapad Varsha Shatam Yamaha. As long as Vidura played the part of a Shudra, being cursed by Manduka Muni, Aryama officiated at the post of Yamaraj to punish those who committed sinful acts. Madhvacharya gives a quote saying, the Devas and Devis do not actually completely take birth on earth. That means it's not that they disappear from the heavenly planets and they appear here. Amshamshenaiva jayante sarve tva ajana jadayaha. They appear as portions. Is that okay? What is that verse? Abhibrad. Such a person who is filled with Bhagavad Bhakti, knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and so on, is Vidura. He was an incarnation of which Deva? Anticipating this question, this is stated. Aryama Vaivaswataha. He is the one who punishes sinful persons by giving them the results of their sinful activities, by causing them to experience the results of the sinful activities. So by the curse of Mandavya, for 100 years, he accepted the role of a Shudra. So, this incident, everyone knows this. Shudrosav Katham Upadishet. He is a Shudra, then how can he instruct? Because Vedic knowledge can only be taught by Brahmanas. The Kshatriyas and Vaishyas can study the Shruti. Study specifically means they can memorize and they can recite about, There is someone who made a whole analysis of what is meant by Stri Shudra Dvijabantu Nam Trayi Na Shruti Gochara. Some academic scholar. Even though he's somewhat influenced by Western academic thought. he gave proper references to prove that. It simply means that Shruti they did not study, because it is a fact that outside of Shruti there's a large body of Vedic knowledge that was taught. But still, the convention is that those who are not Brahmanas, they are not taught, nor are they taken seriously. They're not taken seriously, because you need to, unless we practice what we preach, people will not take us seriously. It is very easy to, there's one statement Sri Govindaraja quotes, which means when it is time to give instructions on dharma, everybody is eager. But when it's time to apply dharma, very few people are eager. So most people are not sufficiently renounced, because the whole idea is to move towards the point of full renunciation. Vairagya, Vidya, Bhakti. That is the whole point. Internal and external Vairagya. Internal and external Vidya. Internal and external Bhakti. So that is the whole idea. I have to come to that point, 100%. So therefore, the Brahmanas, they have the privilege to teach. The Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, they have the privilege to study. Brahmanas also have privilege to study.
Hare Krishna.
I got cut off. I'm going to turn off the video. That's the first thing I'll do. Stop my video. Okay, we'll try our luck now. Okay, so then only the Brahmana is allowed to teach. The Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are not allowed to teach. Therefore, this question. So everybody gets a label. You have a label of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi. And for women, they have the label of woman, Stri. That is also a label. Corresponding to these labels, there are prescriptions, allowances, and prohibitions, which are followed in a meticulous manner. So therefore, this question is asked. He is a Shudra. How can he teach? And then the answer is given. Nahyasau Shudraha. No.
Prabhu, please share the screen.
Again, every time it breaks off. Hey Bhagavan. Nahyasau Shudraha, kintu yamas tadrupena asit. No, he's not a Shudra. He is Yamaraj himself. He's a Deva. He's not even a human being. He's more than a human being who had assumed the form of Vidura. Achyutanam Prabhu.
Prabhu, this is regarding previous purport when Srila Prabhupada is saying about hearing. So, why it happens that, like I have seen, eagerness to hear has decreased. Previously, I was more interested to hear, but I feel that I am lacking it now.
Shadbhir Bhakti Prasidhyati, Shadbhir Bhakti Vinashyati. So all of us have to be individually careful to check whether we are progressing or regressing on a daily basis. Okay, we'll continue. Kim tatra karanam? What is the reason for Yamaraj to have assumed the form of a Shudra? Yamechat atra agate amutra kodandadharaha. So, if Yamaraj has come here, then who is actually executing the punishments there in Yamaraj's place? Ityapekshayam, anticipating this, aha, he speaks, abhibraditi, the current verse beginning with abhibrad. Dhritavan ityartha. So he had accepted this post. Mandavyasya shapat. And this is that history of the curse of Mandavya Rishi. Kvachit choran anudhavanto raja bhata Mandavya Siraya. Okay, this we know. We know this. Prabhupada will explain why this even happened in the first place. No, asa yama eva viduruttvena jatah tasya cha asya lokesmin shreyaskrutvam eva shruyate. Atu yamaloke yamarupena dandakritvam api. So he's only doing good in this world, and he is punishing in the form of Yamaraj there. So there who was handling the punishment aspects, that is stated here. Varshani katichit adhikani shatam cha varsha shatam. A little more than 100 years. Nacha dhritarashtrad kanishtatvan nyuno mantavya. He should not be considered to be junior to Dhritarashtra. Vidura should not be considered to be junior to Dhritarashtra. Sakshat dharmarajasyaiva mandavya shapena shudrataya avatirnatva. Because he is directly Dharmaraja himself, by the curse of Pandavya, he had incarnated as a Shudra. Na vidurasya kanishtatvat shudratvat cha katham tadupadeshtvatvam. How is it that Vidura, who was junior and a Shudra, an instructor, Patraha Aryama, Pitradeva Mukhyaha Bhagavad Vibhutihi, Pitrinam Aryama Chasmi Ityuktaha, Akak Arishu Papishu Yathavat Sanyayam Dandam Abhibradhatavan. At that time, Aryama, he took up the role of righteously punishing sinful people. Aryama is the chief of the celestials known as the Pitris, the pious forefathers. And he is an opulence of Bhagavan. That means he is slightly empowered by Bhagavan. Those who are more empowered are known as Shaktiyaveshas. Those who are slightly empowered are known as Vibhutis. So he is a Vibhuti, as noted in the chapter on Vibhutis in Bhagavad Gita. Pitrinam Aryama Chasmi. Amongst the Pitris, I am Aryama. Yavan Mandavya Shapad Yamah Varshashatam Yapya Shudratam Dathara. Bharate Kathasti. This history appears in Mahabharata. तथा च विदुरः कनिष्ठोऽपि शूद्रोऽपि साक्षात् धर्मराजत्वेन प्रत्यक्षीकृतपरेशत्वात् तस्य तदुपदेशत्वम् इति. And Vidura, even though he was junior, was younger, and even though he was a Shudra, he was in the role of a Shudra, because he was directly Dharmaraja, and because he was directly Dharmaraja, he was directly perceiving the Supreme Lord constantly, internally. Tasya tat upadeshtratvam. Therefore, it is appropriate that he was an instructor. Ateva Bharadwaja Samhitayam. Therefore, in Bharadwaja Samhita, Sri Shudradinam tan nishidhya sakshatkrita paratatvanam tesham taddaha. It is stated that those who are directly perceiving the Supreme Absolute Truth, Personality of Godhead, they are allowed to be acharyas, even though women, Shudras and others have been prohibited, those who are directly perceiving the Supreme Lord continuously, they can be acharyas. Na jatu mantra dataro na shudro nantaro bhavaha nabhishapto na patita kamakamo pyakamitaha triya shudradayas chaiva bodhayeyo hitahitam yathaham ananiyascha narhanti acharyatam kvachyat. So Shudras, those born from mixed families, those who have been cursed, those who are fallen, these persons cannot, they should not give the mantras. The women, Shudras and others, they can explain that which is good and that which is bad. They should be honored as appropriate. But at no point in time are they fit to be acharyas. Kimapi atra abhijayante yoginas sarvayonishu. However, yogis take birth in all the species of life. Pratyakshitatmanarthanam naisham chintyam kuladikam. For those who are directly perceiving the Supreme Soul, one should not consider his or her family background and so on. So the long and short of it is, those who are self-realized, they can give all these instructions and it will be effective. Otherwise, it will not be effective. That's all. Achyutanam Prabhu.
Prabhu, the reason Shudras are not allowed to study as well as teach Vedas is that they will misunderstand it.
They'll screw it up. Look at the whole academic world. That's what happens. How to check this progress daily? How to check? Every day keep checking whether whether our unearthers are increasing or decreasing, whether our taste for chanting is increasing or decreasing, and so on. This is a very easy way to understand.
Oh, daily, how it understand?
When you're eating, you clearly understand whether your hunger is decreasing or not now. So like that. That is why you say, give me little rice. Why do you say, give me little rice? Give little sabji. What is it, little? Because you know that you're 2/3 filled and only 1/3 more you can eat. So like that. Achyutanam Prabhu's hand is still up. Okay, let's continue. Vidura, born of the womb of a Shudra woman, was forbidden even to be a party of royal heritage along with his brothers Dhritarashtra and Pandu. Then how could he occupy the post of a preacher to instruct such learned kings and Kshatriyas as Dhritarashtra and Maharaj Yudhishthira? The first answer is that even though it is accepted that he was a Shudra by birth, because he renounced the world for spiritual enlightenment by such an authority as Rishi Maitreya and was thoroughly educated by him in transcendental knowledge, he was quite competent to occupy the post of an acharya or spiritual preceptor. According to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, anyone who is conversant in the transcendental knowledge or the science of Godhead, be he a Brahmana or a Shudra, a householder or a sannyasi, is eligible to become a spiritual master. Shudra kenenai Jai Krishna Tattvaveta say Guru Hai. Now this Krishna Tattvaveta is a person who is on the status of Prema Bhakti. One who is not yet reached the status of Prema Bhakti is not fit to be referred to as a Krishna Tattvaveta in reality. To encourage persons to become like that, you can refer to him like that. But you cannot, just like a person who is a young person who is studying in MBBS, to encourage that person, we refer to him or her as a doctor. That doesn't mean that he or she can set up a clinic like that. Or even if he or she does that, you can expect a lot of mistakes unofficially if they try to do that, because they are still under training. Similarly, those who are not on the platform of Prema Bhakti, it is understood that their guidance will be defective. So Krishna Tattva Veda is, you can check in Bhagavad Gita itself. Krishna uses this expression, one who knows me in truth. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yarati siddhaye yatamapi siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha. Or Brahmabhuta prasannatma nashochati na kankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param. And then the next verse, bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. So after one becomes a Brahmabhuta prasannatma, then one becomes a Krishna Tattva Vetta. Then he has proper knowledge of Krishna. Knowledge always means realized knowledge in Vedantic contexts, not just some theoretical knowledge. Theoretical knowledge I also have, you also have, we all have. We are not like that. And this statement by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also spoken to Ramananda Rai. It was spoken to Ramananda Rai. Ramananda Rai was already self-realized, God realized everything. He already described about Radharani and Krishna's position even before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discovered Brahma Samhita. Even before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started presenting scriptural evidence for the creation of Radha Krishna and all these things. So that is Krishna Tattva Veda. You can directly see reality, spiritual reality. In Dwapara Yuga, there's a question. In Dwapara Yuga, self-realization was by worship of deity. But we don't see anywhere Pandavas were doing that, nor anyone else. Now, the Pandavas, they could worship the Lord himself, Krishna himself. They were carrying out the instructions of Lord Krishna himself. Why they had to sit and worship the deity? Deity worship has always been there. It was there in Treta Yuga also, but it is specifically important for Dwapara Yuga. Pancharatrik scriptures, they are all presented and promoted at that time very widely, very, very widely. Deity worship was very much there. Just that the Pandavas, they were associates of the Lord. They were associates of the Lord. Because they were associates of the Lord, they were also born as Kshatriyas to assist the Lord's mission of removing the burden of the earth. So therefore, they were given particular tasks. Even in the ordinary moral codes as stated by Chanakya Pandita, the great politician and moralist, there is no harm in taking lessons from a person who may be by birth less than a Shudra. This is one part of the answer. The other is that Vidura was not actually a Shudra. He was to play the part of a so-called Shudra for 100 years, being cursed by Manduka Muni. Prabhupada refers to him as Manduka Muni, and the Acharyas write Andavya Muni. Looks like he might have had two names, or it's an editorial mistake. He might have had two names. Sometimes the sages do have more than one name. So there are sometimes even situations where Kshatriyas also have more than one name. He was the incarnation of Yamaraj, one of the 12 Mahajanas on the level with such exalted personalities as Brahma, Narada, Shiva, Kapila, Bhishma, Prahlad, etc. Because Yamaraj is a Mahajana, it is his duty to preach the cult of devotion to the people of the world as Narada, Brahma, and other Mahajanas do. But Yamaraj is always busy in his Plutonic kingdom, Yamaloka, punishing the doers of sinful acts. Yamaraj is deputed by the Lord to a particular planet, some hundreds of thousands of miles away from the planet of Earth, to take away the corrupt souls after death and convict them in accordance with their respective sinful activities. Thus, Yamaraj has very little time to take leave from his responsible office of punishing the wrongdoers. There are more wrongdoers than righteous men. Therefore, Yamaraj has to do more work than other demigods who are also authorized agents of the Supreme Lord. But he wanted to preach the glories of the Lord. And therefore, by the will of the Lord, he was cursed by Manduka Muni to come into the world in the incarnation of Vidura and work very hard as a great devotee. Such a devotee is neither a Shudra nor a Brahmana. He is transcendental to such divisions of mundane society. Just as the personality of Godhead assumes his incarnation as a hog, but is neither a hog nor a Brahma, is above all mundane creatures. The Lord and his different authorized devotees sometimes have to play the role of many lower creatures to claim the conditioned souls. But both the Lord and his pure devotees are always in the transcendental position. When Yamaraj thus incarnated himself as Vidura, his post was officiated by Aryama, one of the many sons of Kashyapa and Aditi. The Adityas are sons of Aditi, and there are 12 Adityas. Aryama is one of the 12 Adityas, and therefore it was quite possible for him to take charge of the office of Yamaraj during his 100 years absence in the form of Vidura. The conclusion is that Vidura was never a Shudra, but was greater than the purest type of Brahmana. 16. Yudhishthiro Labdharajyo Drishva Pautram Kulandharam Bhratrivih Lokapala Bhai. Something is wrong. Okay. Lokapala Abhay. Okay. Mumude Parayashriya, having won his kingdom and observed the birth of one grandson competent to continue the noble tradition of his family, Maharaj Yudhishthir reigned peacefully and enjoyed uncommon opulence in cooperation with his younger brothers, who were all expert administrators to the common people. Idanim Rajyasya Apakarsham Nirupayitum Utkarsham Nigamayati. What does it mean? Is this a typing mistake? I'm not able to follow this as of now. He talks about the exalted status of the kingdom in order to point out its disadvantages. That's what he's literally saying. What hard work was done by Vidura? Vidura, he set a good example that when you're in a very strange political environment, you should leave. He was a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. That was, and he preached. He preached continuously. He was trying to deliver Dhritarashtra. He was also speaking about how to be dharmic. Vidura Niti is very, very famous. Comes in Mahabharata. His instructions to Dhritarashtra. Both
also,
Maharaj.
but you said worship in Dwapar Yuga. So who else performed other than Pandavas?
Who else performance what? The common people, they were following deity worship only.
That is after Lord Krishna disappeared.
No, this is Dwapar Yuga. Lord Krishna disappeared in Kali Yuga, actually, technically. Kali Yuga appeared during the Battle of Kurukshetra.
Was present that time also. Then why they were doing deity worship? Common people.
When did Krishna appear? He appeared at the end of Dwapar Yuga. So Dwapar Yuga, now you know how long it is. So from the beginning up to the end, deity worship was what was prominent. It's towards the end that Krishna came. What is the problem here?
Just I want to know that who performed this deity worship and got self-realized in Dwapar Yuga.
It is the general process itself. It is like you're asking who did Yagyas in Treta Yuga and got self-realized. Everybody does that. It is a general, it's for the mass. That is the procedure for them. These details are not necessarily presented in Bhagavatam because Bhagavatam is promoting Nama Sankirtana. But you will find all these details abundantly in other Puranas. Both Maharaj Yudhishthir and Arjuna were unhappy from the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra. But even though they were unwilling to kill their own men in the fight, it had to be done as a matter of duty, for it was planned by the supreme will of Lord Sri Krishna. After the battle, Maharaj Yudhishthira was unhappy over such mass killings of human beings and animals. Practically, there was none to continue the Kuru dynasty after them, the Pandavas. The only remaining hope was the child in the womb of his daughter-in-law, Uttara. He was also attacked by Ashwatthama, but by the grace of the Lord, the child was saved. So after the settlement of all disturbing conditions and re-establishment of the peaceful order of the state, and after seeing the surviving child, Parikshit, well satisfied, Maharaj Yudhishthira felt some relief as a human being, although he had very little attraction for material happiness, which is always illusory and temporary. 17. Evam gaheshu saktanam pramattanam tatihaya atyatkramat davidyatah kalah paramadustaraha. Insurmountable eternal time imperceptibly overcomes those who are insanely attached to family affairs and are always engrossed in their thought. Jiva Goswami. This is not a reference to the Pandavas. Those who are insanely attached to family affairs are not, the Pandavas are not those insanely attached to family affairs. This refers to others. The ones who experience the happiness of being maintained by Sri Yudhishthira. Because from text 1.12.6, we know there are texts such as this. We know that Yudhishthira Maharaj had no desire for sense enjoyment. Just as a hungry person is not interested in garlands, sandalwood, and other things. Also, it will be noted in 1.19.20. Ateva viduropi dhritarashtam pratyeva tathopadidesha natu tan pratiti. So therefore, Vidura also gave his instructions only to Dhritarashtra. He did not give instructions to the Pandavas. We clearly understand that the Yadavas and the Pandavas, they were completely absorbed in thoughts of Lord Krishna. From the 10th canto also. Dhritarashtrasyaiva shiksha, natu tesham api. It was only an instruction for Dhritarashtra alone, not to the Pandavas. Grihesha saktanam iti yudhishthradibhyaha anyesham nindavyam tatkalika jananam gyeya. This is a criticism of those other than Yudhishthira and so on. It refers to people of that time. It has already been pointed out that Yudhishthira and his followers, the Pandavas, they had no attachment for the royal opulence, etc. I am now happy. I have everything in order. My bank balance is quite enough. I can now give my children enough estate. I am now successful. The poor beggar sannyasis depend on God, but they come to beg from me. Therefore, I am more than the supreme God. These are some of the thoughts which engross the insanely attached householder, who is blind to the passing of eternal time. Our duration of life is measured and no one is able to enhance it even by a second against the scheduled time ordained by the Supreme Will. Such valuable time, especially for the human being, should be cautiously spent, because even a second passed away imperceptibly cannot be replaced, even in exchange for thousands of gold coins amassed by hard labor. Every second of human life is meant for making an ultimate solution to the problems of life, that is, a repetition of birth and death, and revolving in the cycle of 8,400,000 different species of life. The material body, which is subject to birth and death, diseases and old age, is the cause of all sufferings of the living being. Otherwise, the living being is eternal. He's never born, nor does he ever die. Foolish persons forget this problem. They do not know at all how to solve the problems of life, but become engrossed in temporary family affairs, not knowing that eternal time is passing away imperceptibly, and that their measured duration of life is diminishing every second without any solution to the big problem, namely repetition of birth and death, disease and old age. This is called illusion. But such illusion cannot work on one who is awake in the devotion service of the Lord. Yudhishthira Maharaj and his brothers, the Pandavas, were all engaged in the service of the Lord Sri Krishna, and they had very little attraction for the illusory happiness of this material world. As we have discussed previously, Maharaj Yudhishthira was fixed in the service of the Lord Mukunda, the Lord who can award salvation, and therefore he had no attraction even for such comforts of life as are available in the kingdom of heaven, because even the happiness obtained on the planet Brahmaloka is also temporary and illusory. Because the living being is eternal, he can be happy only in the eternal abode of the kingdom of God, Paravyoma, from which no one returns to this region of repeated birth and death, disease and old age. Therefore, any comfort of life or any material happiness which does not warrant an eternal life is but illusion for the eternal living being. One who factually understands this is learned, and such a learned person can sacrifice any amount of material happiness to achieve the desired goal known as Brahma Sukham, or absolute happiness. Real transcendentalists are hungry for this happiness, and a hungry man cannot be made happy by all comforts of life minus foodstuff. So the man hungry for eternal absolute happiness cannot be satisfied by any amount of material happiness. Therefore, the instruction described in this verse cannot be applied to Maharaj Yudhishthira or his brothers and mother. It was meant for persons like Dhritarashtra, for whom Vidura came, especially to impart lessons. 18. Vidurastad Dahiprat Yad Dhritarashtram Abhashata Rajan Nirgamyatam Shighram Pashyedam Bhayamagatam. Mahatma Vidura knew all this, and therefore he addressed Dhritarashtra. See? So it is meant for Dhritarashtra, therefore he addressed Dhritarashtra, saying, my dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you. Cruel death cares for no one, be he Dhritarashtra or even Maharaj Yudhishthira. Therefore, spiritual instruction, as was given to old Dhritarashtra, was equally applicable to younger Maharaj Yudhishthira. As a matter of fact, everyone in the royal palace, including the king and his brothers and mother, were raptly attending the lectures. But it was known to Vidura that his instructions were especially meant for Dhritarashtra, who was too materialistic. The word Rajan is especially addressed to Dhritarashtra significantly. Dhritarashtra was the eldest son of his father, and therefore, according to law, he was to be installed on the throne of Hastinapur. But because he was blind from birth, he was disqualified from his rightful claim. But he could not forget the bereavement, and his disappointment was somewhat compensated after the death of Pandu, his younger brother. His younger brother left behind him some minor children, and Dhritarashtra became the natural guardian of them. But at heart, he wanted to become the factual king and hand the kingdom over to his own sons, headed by Duryodhana. With all these imperial ambitions, Dhritarashtra wanted to become a king, and he contrived all sorts of intrigues in consultation with his brother Shakuni. But everything failed by the will of the Lord. And at the last stage, even after losing everything, men and money, he wanted to remain as king, being the eldest uncle of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira, as a matter of duty, maintained Dhritarashtra in royal honor. Dhritarashtra was happily passing away his numbered days in the illusion of being a king or the royal uncle of King Yudhishthira. Vidura, as a saint and as a duty-bound, affectionate, youngest brother of Dhritarashtra, wanted to awaken Dhritarashtra from his slumber of being a false king, driven to disease and old age by the force of powerful time. Vidura therefore sarcastically addressed Dhritarashtra as the king, Rajan, which he was actually not. Everyone is a servant of eternal time, and therefore no one can be king in this material world. King means the person who can order effectively. Time and tide, but the time and tide order. Therefore, one is a false king in the material world, and Dhritarashtra was particularly position and of the factual fearful happenings which had already approached him at that time. Vidura asked him to get out immediately if he wanted to be saved from the fearful situation which was approaching him fast. He did not ask Maharaj Yudhishthira in that way because he knew that a king like Maharaj Yudhishthira is aware of all the fearful situations of this flimsy world and would take care of himself in due course, even though Vidura might not be present at that time. Okay, there is right. There's some question here. What is that little attraction they had for illusory energy? Who had little attraction for the illusory energy?
Pandavas.
Where?
It came in the previous paragraph. Previous verse.
Previous verse. Therefore, he had no attraction even for such comforts of life. They had very little attraction. This is an idiom in English. It means no attraction. Achyutanam Prabhu.
Prabhu, even though material happiness is illusory, theoretically, like I can understand, but still, when that moment comes, it appears factual and still I'm attracted. So, any solution for this? There?
We have to execute Krishna consciousness properly. We need to, if we execute it properly in such a manner that the result is manifest, then you understand you're doing it correctly. Alena parichiyate. Everything is tested by the result. Otherwise, one can come up with innumerable combinations of different activities of Krishna consciousness. But everything is tested by the result. If the result is not happening, Cheto Darpanam Arjanam, Bhava Mahadavajna Nirvapanam, each of this is meant to be experienced step by step. If this is not happening, means that we are not doing it properly. Therefore, we have to do it properly. Otherwise, it's just Birbal Ka Kichari. That's all. You keep fire in one place and we keep a pot some 3 feet above, and then no cooking will happen. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihiyate. We have to accept appropriate practices, appropriate routines, and also keep away from things which are disturbing. Vairagyena cha grihiyate. All right, we'll stop with that. Anshai kalpatarubhyasya kripasindubhye vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.